Today on Roll for Crit, we're here to talk about replacement parts and specifically how they relate to a new policy under Asmodee in the US. If you're a board gamer, then I'm sure you know that replacement parts can be a tricky issue, and they aren't something that hopefully you come across too often that you're in need of them, but it could happen that you buy a board game and something is missing or a piece is damaged. You know, there's a lot of little pieces in those boxes and a lot of little cards, and it's not inconceivable that something's missing or damaged. And in the past, and with a lot of board game companies, what happened is that you've been able to contact them directly, the publisher. They will get in touch with the manufacturer, or they'll look in their supply of extra games and pieces they have, and they'll be able to just send you what you need free of charge. Now Asmodee, which if you don't know is a fairly large figure in the board game industry.
To say the least.
Yes, they own quite a number of different publishers under their umbrella. They have a new policy that says if you have a problem in that regard, you're going to need to go back to the place that you purchased the game, and then they will talk to Asmodee, and Asmodee will try to go through them to get you a replacement game or part that they have available. A lot of people are unhappy about this. They don't like this change because it means, you know, there's a middleman they have to go through, and it used to be very simple, straightforward, and now they don't know exactly how things are going to work.
Well, the exact wording on there too is while supplies last. So this isn't a getting that one piece you need. This is replacing the entire game.
Right. It depends on their stock. Basically, they said they're making this change because having so many games under their belt, it's very difficult for them, they say, to keep all of them in stock at one time, and they just can't make these promises anymore. So yeah, it's dependent on what they have available. And that's certainly part of what's tricky about this and what's scary is, you know, it's a lot harder to guarantee what you can get. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, especially a lot of these games now, you know, I know someone said they were missing a few cards from their, like, one of their Marvel Champions expansions, and that's sold out everywhere. You know, you can't really find another copy to swap with it.
Right.
But we've also seen some other board game companies now, like, making sure everyone knows what their return policy is in almost a bit of a cheeky way.
Yeah, some have come out of Plaid Hat Games who recently left Asmodee, made a little update to their replacements policy, which is simply that you can just get a replacement right through them. But, you know, they did mention in that release that certain games are no longer in print, which is pretty reasonable that you don't expect them to be able to provide replacement parts for those. So maybe to play devil's advocate a little bit, it is something that could potentially be, especially for a company as large as Asmodee, a big loss for them if too many people are asking for parts. Maybe it's complicated, difficult, they have to find the parts, they have to cannibalize copies they have to mail them out. But then you might also argue that, well, they are a very big company and comparatively it's not a huge loss. This is going to affect a pretty small number of people, and while, especially if you take part in online board game discussions and things, it may seem like there's a larger number of missing parts issues than really there are. I think for the most part, these games go out and they're intact. Certainly it's been my anecdotal experience, at least.
I've had a couple issues here and there, not too many.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, because they're so big, you know, if it was a smaller company and you tell people you're not going to replace the parts, no one's going to buy your game. Asmodee doesn't have to care. And I think that's the other issue. People are angry because they know it's because they can make that choice because they already have the marketplace in a pseudo-monopoly.
Yeah, it's true. It's also very easy to root against them for a number of reasons. Because you look at, like you said, in my experience, most smaller board game publishers are very willing to give replacement parts, and they're usually super friendly about it. They'll send them right out. They're very helpful in that regard. So when you see that in comparison to the juggernaut of the industry saying, we're going to make it a little harder for you, it's definitely easy to say, oh, they're the bad guys here. And not that I'm in favor of this policy. I mean, I definitely think it's a negative thing overall. I do partially see where they're coming from, and I do, in the end, for better or worse, think that it probably won't change simply because there aren't enough people this will impact that I think the complaining will make a difference.
Yeah, and I'll admit early on for me when I did make those changes now, because I have a nice big bucket of random meeples and stuff, I'm if I can, I'll just use something from there and be like, that's the swap out piece. you know?
Yeah, but it is hard because especially, and hopefully in the ideal situation, you take it back to the store and they can help you. But sometimes you don't buy things necessarily at a store. Maybe you got it at a convention.
Well, and that's actually another big issue for these stores, especially when we're not talking about like a Target or Amazon. But let's say you go to them like, I need a replacement part for this game. And they could contact Asmodee and say, no, we don't have any more copies of that game. They can either tell a consumer that or eat the cost themselves, which they're already making a very small margin on. Probably.
Right. Is it now it's the burden of the store to make the customer happy. And then if the people have a negative perception of the store, that hurts them. Yeah. So it's certainly, it's putting more on their shoulders, which they have enough on their shoulders already, I think. It's really hard to be a brick and mortar store or even an online board game store. So certainly most parties that are going to be impacted by this, I think, are being so negatively. It's not a great policy, and I don't blame people for being upset. And maybe there's a chance that people come around and they change it in the future. I don't know.
That's true. I think also what Asmodee could do on their part, because they own so many games, this doesn't really work for the cards, and that's definitely, I think, the worst of the things to not have something for. I can get a replacement meeple or use something else. You can't really replace a Captain America card in the deck if that's his core card.
Right, a specific...
Unless you make a proxy with sleeves, and that doesn't feel fun.
No.
But what they could do is try to standardize if they have so many games. We're going to make sure we have a whole stock of red cubes, a whole stock of these. It's sort of like how cards got standardized for sleeves.
Interesting. Yeah, that's one way to go about it. I'm sure in a lot of cases, maybe you risk losing some thematic flair if you go too far in that direction. But I'm sure there's like a middle ground where, at the end of the day, maybe, dice are dice. Like most games could use one type of die.
Even if it's just different colors?
Yeah, it's something to consider. Yeah, there may be other solutions, opportunities. And, it's early. Like, again, the policies can and do change. That's just like this one already did. And maybe it'll change in the future. We'd be interested to know what you think. I doubt there are many people really in favor of this policy change.
I would be shocked.
But I would really like to hear stories if people have been impacted by this already, or what you think. Is there a compromise that could be made that would make both consumers and Asmodee happy about this?
That doesn't involve a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow?
Yes, that doesn't involve any miracles or uprisings. Let us know in that comment section. I have no doubt people have thoughts about this one. And we'll keep an eye out and we'll see if they change anything in the future or if other publishers even maybe follow suit in this regard.
Oh, that would be the other interesting thing if everyone actually follows their... I didn't think of that.
Could happen.
Until that very weird future comes. I'm Will.
I'm Jonathan.
This is Roll for Crit.
If you want to help out, you can check out our Patreon, or a simple click to like and subscribe can go a long way.
We really appreciate everything that you can do for us. We love you.